Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Global English Podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Taylor.
So today we are doing a deep dive into what I think is maybe the single most relatable struggle in modern life.
Oh, yeah.
The goal graveyard. You know, that place where all your fantastic New Year's resolutions and like your brilliant 5-year plans, they go to die around Wednesday of the first week.
I know that graveyard very well. It's a crowded place.
It is. You get that feeling, right? You have the perfect vision to learn English every single day or start that intense new exercise program. And then a week later, motivation just completely gone. You're stuck in the exact same spot.
It's the cycle of lost motivation, and it's a totally universal experience. But the thing is, it's not because you lack willpower.
Right.
It's usually because you lack the right toolkit and maybe even the right planning structure to begin with.
And that's exactly what we're digging into. We've brought together two incredible, really powerful sources today. The first one gives us the mental toolkit. We're looking at concrete evidence-based strategies straight from cognitive behavioral therapy or, CBT.
And that's all about managing the cycle of our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions.
Exactly. And the second source is this fascinating academic research that looks at the actual mechanics of planning.
It asks a simple question. Does it matter if you plan your goals from start to finish forward, or if you start from your future self and plan backward to today?
So our deep dive mission today is to explore this entire interconnected cycle of human experience and then merge it with the science of planning. We want to find the exact strategies that actually keep you motivated.
And really figure out if starting your plan from that future vision actually works for you, especially as a learner.
And here is the surprise we found in the research. Get this, because it should make you listen really closely. We all hear that advice, right? From big companies especially, to set these huge, bold 10-year plans and work backward from them.
Yeah, that's a very popular idea.
I mean, that's what companies like Lululemon actually push for in their corporate goal-setting programs. They want you to have this huge 10-year vision of your perfect life.
The research suggests something quite different. For those massive, really abstract, long-term life goals, backward planning doesn't actually increase motivation compared to just planning forward.
It doesn't.
In fact, one study found that doing this kind of long-term future planning sometimes made the goal feel psychologically, well, further away.
Wow. Okay, that is the total opposite of what you want.
Exactly.
So what we found is that the crucial factor is the time frame. We found overwhelming evidence that for short-term goals, like setting a vision just 6 months out backward planning, is scientifically proven to be better.
And we're going to explain the key scientific concept that makes this difference so important, especially for you, our B1 English learner audience who are looking for practical advice that actually sticks.
It all comes down to building the right dependent chain of actions. So if you want the blueprint for setting goals that you actually achieve,
Then you are definitely in the right place.
But before we jump into the CBT toolbox, if you love breaking down complex topics into simple, actionable steps, please help us keep bringing you these deep dives. Just hit that subscribe button and like the show right now to support Global English Podcast.
Yes, please do. So, where do we start? I think we should begin where all practical change begins, with understanding the foundation of our behavior.
Which is often rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Okay, so when we talk about CBT, we're talking about a very structured, highly focused, and goal-oriented approach. It is not about, just talking endlessly about your past problems.
It has a very clear identity.
It does. It's evidence-based, which we'll get into, meaning it's been thoroughly tested, it's highly structured, goal-oriented, and, this is a key word, psychoeducational.
I've heard that term before, psychoeducational.
Ah.
Let's really unpack that. What does that actually mean in this context, and why is it so important for someone who's just trying to set some goal?
That's a great question. It means it's basically a skill-based curriculum. When you engage with CBT, you are, in essence, learning. You're paying for a focused course designed to give you a concrete toolkit, different mental tools that you can take with you for the rest of your life.
Oh, wow. So it's not just insight, it's skill acquisition. I'm not just talking about my feelings. I'm learning a durable skill set, kind of like learning to code or learning a new language.
Exactly, and the structure of it really reinforces that. CBT is typically time-limited, often just 16 to 20 weeks, and each session is really structured. Well, there's a clear agenda. It always starts with a review of your mood and how you did on last week's homework. They call it a practice assignment. Then the middle of the session is for learning one new tool, and the end is for setting the homework for the next week.
That's intense.
Yeah.
It really forces you to stay engaged.
Yeah.
And the source mentioned the therapy is collaborative. What's that about?
Highly collaborative. The idea is that the therapist is the expert on CBT methods, but you, the individual, are the expert on yourself.
I like that.
Yeah, and this partnership is key because real behavioral change can't happen unless you're actively applying these assignments to your specific life.
That idea of shared expertise is great. Okay, so let's look at the core models that make CBT work. It's built on two pillars, right?
Yes. The first is the behavioral model. This one focuses mostly on action, on your environment, and on external reinforcement. The key idea, especially for low mood or depression, is that depressed people tend to withdraw.
They pull back from things.
Right. And as a result, they don't get enough positive reinforcement from, engaging with their environment.
So they stop doing fun activities, they isolate themselves, they avoid challenges, and that avoidance and isolation just creates this negative feedback loop that spirals downward.
Precisely. This lack of active engagement leads directly to the core symptoms like fatigue, low mood, and no motivation, which then causes even less engagement. It's a vicious cycle.
And behavioral strategies are designed to just break that cycle.
Exactly, to interrupt it.
This is a huge realization for anyone listening who wants to set goals. Stop waiting to feel good to act, and instead, you have to act even just a tiny bit to create the conditions to feel better.
That's the behavioral side in a nutshell. The second pillar is the cognitive model. This one focuses purely on your thinking processes.
The stuff going on in your head.
Yes. The cognitive model clearly states that our automatic thoughts are directly connected to our mood, our physical responses like tension or fatigue, and our behaviors. The key lesson here is that two different people can face the exact same situation and have completely different reactions.
All because of their ingrained thinking patterns.
Exactly. So the basic flow is situation leads to an automatic thought, which then leads to a reaction. But that reaction feeds back into the situation, creating a continuous loop.
So it's all connected. The full cognitive behavioral model is a complete circle. Situation influences thought, thought influences emotion, emotion influences behavior, and behavior feeds back into the situation.
Everything is connected. And if you can successfully change just one part of that cycle, like your behavior or your thought, the whole cycle starts to shift upward.
Okay, let's unpack something you said earlier. I hear this word evidence-based everywhere, in science, medicine, and now therapy. For someone studying English, what does it really mean in plain English? How can they use it?
That's a fantastic word to master. When something is described as evidence-based, and notice it's an adjective, usually with a hyphen, it means it's a strategy or a practice or a program that is designed or proven to work effectively.
Proven how?
Because it has been tested and supported by verifiable, repeatable scientific studies or facts.
Okay, so if I read an article that claims this new study method is evidence-based, it means researchers didn't just guess that it works. They actually tested it, like rigorously, and published the data showing it was effective.
That's the key. It implies reliability and scientific rigor. It separates it from just good ideas or, anecdotal claims. Let me give you 3 different examples to really lock it in.
Okay.
First, a formal one. The new medication for managing severe depression was approved quickly because clinical trials proved it was rigorously evidence-based, showing clear positive results compared to the standard treatments.
Makes sense.
Now a more casual one. My friend's new training plan for running that helped her complete a marathon is totally evidence-based. She literally read a ton of sports science articles and customized it based on data before she started.
I like that. Using research for personal stuff.
And finally, a funny one. My grandmother's belief that you must drink a glass of vinegar every morning to stay healthy is definitely not evidence-based, according to my doctor, but I drink it anyway because I don't want to argue with her.
Huh. That's a great example of what it's not. Okay, let's try a quick scenario role play. I need your help deciding something practical.
I'm ready. Go for it.
Okay, I'm trying to decide on a new way to memorize English vocabulary. I could spend hours just writing the words over and over, or I could use something called spaced repetition flashcards. Which one should I pick?
Well, you should definitely choose the method that is most evidence-based. In this case, research has strongly shown that spaced repetition is the more evidence-based strategy for efficient memory retention compared to just simple rote repetition.
Perfect. That clarifies the high standard that word implies. So what are some common words or concepts that often go with evidence-based?
We often talk about evidence-based research, evidence-based strategies, evidence-based practice, or an evidence-based program. Anytime you need to signal that something is backed by facts, this is the perfect adjective. Okay, so now we can move from just understanding the CBT cycle to taking practical action.
Getting things done.
Exactly. And this means defining success clearly, usually through the essential SMART goals framework.
Ah, the acronym everyone knows, but often gets wrong. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely.
And we really can't emphasize enough the need for specificity and measurability. A specific goal identifies the who, what, when, where, and how. A measurable goal is quantifiable so you can actually track your progress.
Right. A vague goal like, I want to be better at English, is basically useless. A SMART goal is something like, I will spend 30 minutes reading an English novel every evening for the next 30 days.
That's a perfect example. And this structure is the necessary first step toward behavioral activation, which is the core strategy here.
This is the idea of intentionally increasing healthy behaviors to create positive experiences,
Yeah.
right? To break that negative cycle we talked about.
Exactly. The research is so clear on this. You have to proactively create conditions for positive experiences because just waiting for motivation to strike is often a losing game. Behavioral activation focuses on two types of activities:
What are they?
mastery and pleasure.
Okay, mastery activities. Those are things that give you a sense of competence or accomplishment or improvement, even if they aren't necessarily fun.
Yes, like spending 15 minutes organizing your digital files or finishing a really difficult homework problem. You feel competent afterward.
And pleasure activities.
Those are purely enjoyable. Listening to a favorite album, calling a friend, both types are necessary to increase that positive reinforcement from your environment.
Wait, let me push back on that a little. We said you have to act positive before you feel positive. I get that. But what if I feel so low that even the smallest mastery task like opening my computer to organize my files feels completely impossible? What if step one is already too hard?
That's a powerful and very realistic challenge. And that leads us perfectly to the core CBT technique for managing overwhelming tasks: graded task assignments.
This is how we take the huge, scary goal, the start studying for my English exam task, and make it, like, not threatening.
Exactly. Graded task assignments are the technique for turning overwhelming tasks into highly manageable, low-effort steps. You sequence the smaller goals into the most logical, achievable order, and you match the task to your current energy level.
Let's stick with the studying example. If my big goal is pass the B2 English exam in 6 months, the first graded task should be ridiculously simple.
It has to be, and this is a critical instruction from the source. It's always better to choose a task that is too easy but that you will accomplish, rather than something too hard that you might fail.
Because if you fail that first step, you just reinforce that core belief of, I am a failure.
Precisely.
So if the goal is the B2 exam, the first graded task might literally be step 1. Open the textbook and read the title of chapter 1.
Perfect. That's it. Step 2 might be write down 10 vocabulary words from chapter 1. Step 3. Set a 10-minute timer and look up the definitions for those 10 words.
And successful completion, even of these tiny, almost trivial steps, gives you that essential hit of positive reinforcement. It breaks the cycle and primes you for the next, slightly harder step.
And this whole process relies on commitment, which brings us back to the home practice requirement of CBT. You have to commit daily.
Right.
The manuals really emphasize that these skills are not an instant change. It requires daily commitment to practice. You must commit to put your new skills to use.
I love that phrase, to put into use. It's so practical. How do native speakers really use this idiom in different situations?
To put into use is a fantastic practical idiom. It really just means to start applying a new skill, a plan, a strategy, or even a piece of equipment in a practical, active way. It's that transition from theory to the real world.
So moving something from potential to action. Perfect. Let's hear your examples.
Okay, first a formal one. Following the massive corporate merger, the newly trained team must put the new safety procedures into use starting Monday morning or face legal repercussions.
Very official.
Now, a casual one. I learned a great new cooking technique today from a YouTube video, how to chop onions without crying, and I plan to put it into use immediately for dinner tonight to see if it actually works.
I need that video. What about a funny one?
Okay, funny. I bought a ridiculously expensive book on simplifying my life, but I haven't managed to put its tips into use yet because my entire house is too chaotic to even find the book where I left it.
I think that last example is a tragic truth for many of us. Okay, let's try a quick scenario role play.
Lead the way.
You finished your difficult coding course. That's amazing. Are you ready to look for a job in the tech industry right away?
I think so, but first, I need a period where I can actively put my new programming skills into use. by building a personal website portfolio to showcase my practical work to potential employers.
Fantastic. That phrase really implies competence and a readiness to apply it. What types of words usually go with this idiom?
We commonly put skills, knowledge, plans, strategies, or techniques into use. Basically, anything you learn or design that requires active application in the real world. Okay, so if the behavioral side is all about the action and breaking something from the outside, the cognitive side is about the mindset.
Interrupting the errors from the inside.
Exactly. We need to address the thinking errors that sabotage our attempts to follow those graded task assignments we just talked about.
And this means we need to move beyond just the automatic thoughts, that surface level noise, to the deeper, more impactful beliefs.
Yes, the source uses this excellent analogy. The cognitive hierarchy is like a tree with three distinct levels of thinking.
Okay, I like that. Let's start at the top of the tree. The leaves.
The leaves are the automatic thoughts. They're surface level, they're non-volitional, which means they just pop into your head spontaneously, like background noise.
They can be just brief words, right? Like useless.
Or images, or a gut feeling, and we tend to automatically accept them as truth, especially when we're stressed.
And below the leaves, in the thicker branches of the tree.
Those are the intermediate beliefs. These are the functional rules, assumptions, or attitudes we follow to survive. They often take an if-then structure. For example, if I avoid meeting new people at all costs, then I'll be safe. Or I should always be perfect, otherwise people will judge me. These are the rules that govern our behavior.
And then at the very root of the tree, the foundation that feeds the whole system.
Those are the core beliefs. They're at the deepest level of our thinking. They represent absolute, fundamental, and usually unverified views of ourselves, others, and the world.
So if the root is unhealthy, if it's a core belief like, I am incompetent or I am unlovable, it's going to constantly feed unhealthy leaves, those negative automatic thoughts.
Constantly. And the CBT process uses something called the downward arrow technique to dig from the surface thought down to the core belief. This is a crucial skill because it helps you identify what's sabotaging you.
Can we try to demonstrate this? Let's say I tried to put my new English study plan into use, but I missed one day and I had a negative automatic thought.
Okay, what's the thought?
The automatic thought is, I missed studying yesterday. I should just quit my English class right now.
Okay. Now, using the downward arrow, I'll ask, if that thought were true, if you did quit, what would that mean about you personally?
It would mean that I'm unreliable, that I can't stick to anything.
And if you are unreliable and you can't stick to anything, what does that fundamentally tell you about your ability to learn or succeed?
It tells me that I am too slow to learn. I am fundamentally unintelligent.
And there it is. I am unintelligent is the core belief. See how you went from a surface event missing one day to an absolute self-judgment.
Yeah.
Once you identify that core belief, you can start to challenge the evidence for and against it. You can see that one missed day doesn't actually prove you're unintelligent.
That demonstration of digging down is incredibly powerful. Okay, so let's look at the specific errors in thinking, the thinking traps that come from those unhealthy roots. Let's look at a few more.
Sure. We mentioned catastrophizing, which is expecting a disaster. Let's look at two common filters people apply to their thinking. First, there's dichotomous thinking. This is the black or white filter. It only lets you see situations in extremes. Everything is either all good or all bad. Success or failure.
No middle ground.
None. If you're not perfect, you're a failure. This is so dangerous for goal setting because nobody achieves a goal perfectly. You need to accept that 70% progress is good.
So if you score 89% on your English exam, dichotomous thinking says, well, that's not 100%, so I failed.
Exactly. The second trap is discounting the positives. This is the filter that takes anything good you accomplish and automatically stamps does not count on it.
Why would anyone do that?
It's a mechanism to keep their unhealthy core belief like, I'm a failure, safe and protected. If you succeed on a task, discounting the positive says, oh, that doesn't count because it was too easy, or that was just pure luck.
You literally minimize your own accomplishments to maintain a negative view of yourself. That's rough. So we need a practical, immediate strategy to stop those obsessive ruminating thoughts.
And that's where thought-stopping techniques come in. This is a simple, practical skill. First, you have to recognize the negative thought process. Then, you have to aggressively interrupt it.
But how do I interrupt a mental process?
The source suggests a few immediate steps. You can physically interrupt the thought pattern by closing your eyes and mentally shouting, "Stop P," or visualizing a huge red stop sign in your mind.
Okay.
You can also take 10 slow, deep, relaxing breaths. Or, and this is a bit counterintuitive, you can schedule time later to worry.
Schedule worry time. That sounds bizarre, but I think I see the psychological genius there.
It is genius. If I tell myself, okay, I will allow myself to worry intensely about this financial problem from 4:04 to 1 p.m. and only then, I give myself cognitive permission to let the thought go now.
Because your brain knows the thought will be addressed later.
Right. It limits the intensity and frequency of that unhealthy rumination in the present moment. You are asserting control over your worrying habit.
This is great. We have the CBT tools, the behavioral strategies to act, and the cognitive strategies to manage our thoughts. We know the what and the why of goal setting.
And now we need to address the how. If our goal is to overcome feeling overwhelmed, and we've learned to manage our automatic thoughts, how do we actually structure the plan itself?
Exactly. If I stop ruminating, I need a clear structure to replace that mental chaos. And that brings us to our second source, the academic research on planning direction, the forward versus backward planning dichotomy.
Right. Forward planning is the natural way most people do it, starting with today and moving chronologically toward the future goal. Step A, then step B, then step C, all the way to the finish line.
And backward planning is the reverse of that. You start with the desired future endpoint, and you work backward in time to the present moment, identifying what had to happen right before.
This backward technique is actually used a lot in complex project management like construction because it helps determine critical start dates. But we're interested in its psychological effect on our personal aspirational goals.
Right, and we talked about how researchers were testing this against that corporate advice from places like Lululemon. The idea that envisioning your ideal future self in 10 years and planning backward from that huge vision is the best way.
And previous studies had already shown that backward planning does help for complex short-term goals, like a single academic project over a few weeks. It seems to increase perceived clarity. The steps just feel more concrete.
But the big life goals, like a 10-year vision, are way more complex and abstract than a single assignment.
Absolutely. The research repeatedly refers to these huge, overarching life goals as being inherently multidimensional.
That word multidimensional really signals complexity in the sources. I've heard many different parts, but what's the deep dive definition for our listeners?
Multidimensional is a powerful adjective. It means having several different aspects, features, or parts. It involves more than one area that has to be addressed at the same time. We use it for complex problems or goals that you can't solve by just focusing on one angle.
So a long-term future vision is naturally multidimensional because it includes your career, your finances, your health, your family, your personal achievements,
Right.
all woven together.
Precisely. You can't separate those parts when you look 10 years out. Let's do our 3 examples.
Okay.
First, a formal one. The research studied multidimensional goals, which required analyzing elements from career progression, physical health maintenance, and personal achievement to determine success.
Got it.
Next, casual. Planning a successful move to a new country is an incredibly multidimensional project. You have to worry about jobs, visas, housing, learning the language, and your social life all at once.
That is definitely multidimensional. And the funny one.
Funny example. Trying to assemble my new, overly complex electronic gadget felt like solving a multidimensional puzzle because the instructions were in 5 different languages and required 4 different tools I didn't own.
Huh. That's a perfect use of the word. Okay, let's try a quick scenario role play. I feel completely overwhelmed by my future vision. It's so big and vague. I just want success in every area of my life.
That's totally understandable because your future vision is inherently multidimensional. You need to break down those different areas, career, family, health, and address them with separate, specific plans before you can feel less overwhelmed.
That helps so much. Now, I know that when I face a big, complex problem, I can call it multidimensional. What are the common collocations here?
We often hear multidimensional goals, multidimensional strategy, a multidimensional approach, or a multidimensional problem. It's all about complexity. Okay, so we have these big multidimensional goals, and the researchers tested whether planning them backward or forward works better for motivation. And the key takeaway, like we teased, is that the outcome depended entirely on the time horizon.
Okay, so let's detail the core findings from the studies.
The first core finding was that for long-term goals, those 6 to 10-year visions backward planning did not increase motivation compared to planning forward.
And this is where it gets really interesting. What are the psychological costs of trying to plan your entire decade backward?
The research found that backward planning for a distant, abstract future sometimes led people to perceive the goal as feeling further away. It actually reduced their sense of urgency.
Wow.
It suggests that when the goal is too abstract, the planning exercise itself feels like more work without any motivational payoff. It takes a lot of cognitive effort to generate that plan, and if it doesn't feel actionable, that effort is wasted.
So all that corporate advice about planning your entire decade backward might actually be counterproductive for your personal motivation. That's a huge insight.
But here's the flip side. The second core finding was the exact opposite. For short-term goals, that 6-month vision backward planning did significantly increase motivation.
Okay, this is what we need to dive into. Why does it work for 6 months but not 6 years? Is our brain just better at visualizing the near future steps?
Yes, and this is where a key piece of psychology comes in. High-level versus low-level construal theory.
Okay, that sounds technical. Break it down for us.
It's all about abstract versus concrete thinking. When you look far into the future, say 10 years, your brain engages in high-level construal. You're thinking abstractly about the why of the goal. Why do I want this?
Big picture thinking.
Exactly.
Well,
But when you look at the near future, 6 months, your brain naturally engages in low-level construal.
And that's concrete.
Precisely. You're thinking about the how. How will I study tonight? How will I apply for that visa? The task is specific and actionable.
I see the analogy. The long-term goal is like looking at a mountain range from 100 kilometers away. It's beautiful and abstract, high level.
Correct. The short-term goal, however, is like standing at the base of the mountain and looking at the first part of the trail. The goal is now concrete, low level. And backward planning from that concrete point allows you to generate tangible, actionable steps right away.
And that leads us to the crucial mechanism, the secret ingredient that makes backward planning work for short-term goals. It's not just the order, it's the connection between the steps.
Absolutely. The research showed that the reason backward planning works for short-term goals is by increasing something called sequential contingency.
That term is the absolute key to this entire deep dive. We need to define it precisely.
Sequential contingency is the degree to which one goal logically fits with and builds upon the preceding goals. Essentially, it measures dependency. How connected are the steps in your plan? Think of it like a chain, where link 2 cannot happen unless link 1 is complete.
So backward planning forces you to verify that dependency. If my goal is X, the step right before it, Y, must be the logical prerequisite. It locks the steps together.
Exactly. When participants planned backward for their short-term future, they were forced to create plans with significantly higher contingency. The steps were tightly connected and dependent.
The source material had some great examples of this.
It did. An example of a plan with high contingency was very logical. To graduate, I must have completed my field placements. To complete field placements, I must have built my resume. To build my resume, I must do well on final exams. Each step flows from the next.
Now compare that to a non-contingent plan, where backward planning failed.
The steps listed were things like passing physics with 90%, getting into a solid, stable relationship, finding a better job.
Those things aren't connected at all.
Not sequentially, no. Passing physics has no logical dependency on finding a stable relationship. They are just isolated wishes.
So the magic of backward planning isn't the reversal itself. It's that when the goal is concrete and close, the reversal process forces you to see the necessary dependency between steps.
Spot on. And that clarity creates a sense of continuous motion, which is what boosts your motivation.
Contingency is such a crucial and complex noun. It sounds very formal. Can you help us understand the two main ways to use this word correctly?
Of course. As a noun, contingency has two main meanings. The first refers to a future event that's possible but not certain, an emergency or possibility.
The what-if scenario.
Exactly. The second, and the one most relevant to our planning discussion, describes a dependency of one thing on another.
Let's hear the examples.
Okay. 1. Formal. We included a large contingency fund in the project budget to cover unexpected legal costs, ensuring the project could proceed even if problems arose.
That's the what-if meaning.
2. Casual. We need a good contingency plan for the outdoor party in case it suddenly starts raining this weekend.
Also what-if.
3. And now the funny one, which shows dependency. My ability to be productive at work has a high contingency on whether or not the coffee machine is working in the morning. If it's broken, the whole work structure collapses.
Huh. That funny example perfectly captures the dependency meaning. Okay, let's do a quick scenario role play using the what-if definition.
You start.
I'm really nervous about the long journey. What if the flight is delayed and we miss our connecting train?
Don't worry, I always have a travel contingency. I already looked at the schedule for the next 3 buses and have the phone number for a private shuttle service as a backup.
Excellent. So what are the common words that pair with the noun contingency?
The strongest ones are contingency plan, a contingency fund, discussing sequential contingency, or judging whether there is high contingency or low contingency between two events. Hashtag 3, the common mistake segment.
Okay, that brings us perfectly to our common mistake segment. Today we're focusing on a tricky verb that is super useful when discussing how to balance out a negative effect, like we do in CBT, to counteract.
It's a great strong verb for B1 learners to put into use.
But I often hear English learners make a really common error. Because the word means to act against, learners often add that preposition. For example, I want to counteract against the bad effects of not sleeping enough. Is that correct?
That's a classic mistake. While the meaning of counteract is indeed to act against something, in native English we just say, I want to counteract the bad effects. We completely drop the preposition against.
Because the meaning of against is already built into the verb counteract. Adding the preposition is redundant.
Exactly. Redundant prepositions are a very common learner error, and cutting them out makes your English sound much more fluid and natural. Let me give you 2 correct examples.
Please do.
1, the strong sugar content in my morning espresso needs a little milk to counteract the intense bitterness.
Balancing the flavors.
2, the government passed a new law intended to counteract the rising rate of inflation in housing prices. The law is acting directly against the trend.
So remember, you counteract something, not against something. That's a quick fix that immediately polishes your English. Hashtag 4, pop quiz and outro.
We've covered so much ground today, from the behavioral cycles that drain our motivation to the academic proof of how to structure short-term goals. Let's do a quick pop quiz to see what's stuck.
Bring it on. I'm ready.
First question. Which of our keywords today describes a plan where every single step logically depends on and builds upon the previous step?
Ooh, that is the crucial ingredient for successful short-term backward planning. It's contingency, specifically sequential contingency. It's the difference between wishing and planning.
Spot on. Question 2. If a scientific strategy, like the methods in CBT, is rigorously backed by tested research and facts, what adjective do we use?
That strategy is evidence-based. If it's not evidence-based, I'm not trusting it.
Excellent. And finally, if a big life goal involves planning for several different areas, like career, health, and family all at once, how would you describe the complexity of that goal?
That goal is absolutely multidimensional, too complex to tackle, which is one simple strategy.
Perfect score. I think we can quickly summarize the 3 most crucial takeaways for our listeners today.
Okay. Number 1, the goal cycle is real. Remember that CBT model your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are always influencing each other. You can start changing the cycle anywhere, but action or behavioral activation is often the easiest entry point.
2, planning direction matters, but you have to consider the time horizon. Use backward planning for short-term, specific goals, your 6-month vision, to significantly boost motivation. Avoid it for your abstract 10-year vision.
And 3, always look for contingency in your plans. Make sure step B is truly dependent on step A. This locks in your commitment and boosts motivation because the path forward is clear and logical.
And now for your micro-challenge this week. We want you to integrate these powerful words into your everyday English. So this week, try to use the word multidimensional when describing a situation at work or school.
And as a practical commitment to better planning, actually write the word contingency on your next to-do list as a reminder to make sure all your steps are logically linked together.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the science of goal setting. We hope this gives you the evidence-based tools you need to finally put those changes into use.
Don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to Global English Podcast so you don't miss our next deep dive. I'm Jordan. See you next time.
And I'm Taylor. Bye.